Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and today I am here with a book haul. Every year on Thanksgiving weekend, George from the Book Garden up in Cream Ridge, New Jersey, holds a cookbook sale where he has a special sale on his cookbooks. He does this because he gets so many of them each year that he feels that he needs to compensate and give himself enough space to leave him to put for him to put any of his other books and the cookbooks that generally fit in his designated section, which, because it's the Book Garden, there's still a nice selection year-round. And throughout the rest of the weekend, he sells the cookbooks for 50% off. And I took good advantage because they had a really good selection of cookbooks and books that can be identified as such. I got 16 cookbooks, and that does not include everything else that I bought while I was there. I'm going to share them in no particular order. I'm going to start with the cookbooks, and then I'm going to talk about the other books that I bought while I was there. And the first thing that I'm going to talk about is Jacques Pepin celebrates 200 of his most cherished recipes for memorable meals with family and friends. Jacques Pepin, I really enjoy his straightforward demeanor, but it's very engaging, and he definitely knows what he is talking about. Jacques Pepin doesn't have the kind of cooking show that you may see from Emeril Lagasse or Rachel Ray. He's a bit more reserved in his demeanor, but what he comes out with is incredibly brilliant. Just remember that in the NFL, Bill Belichick is a more reserved coach and doesn't have that boisterous personality. But he's a 5-time Super Bowl winner, and Jacques Pepin is a top-of-the-line chef. I was also impressed by the fact that he did one of his thesis statements on food in French literature, and that in itself is engaging. Next one I'm going to talk about is Antipasti, Appetizers the Italian Way. And this was put together by Time Life, but the text is by Carla Bardi, the photography by Marco Lanza, and the set design by Cinzia Calamé. This is a pretty basic book, but it was 50% off. That's what I kept telling myself. And I kept telling myself over and over and over again, they're 50% off, and if they catch your attention, the recipes may be valuable at some point in time. Because the Swiss chard lasagna recipe from Martha Stewart's Vegetables proved to be a great hit. And so did the alpaca cookie recipe from the New Jersey Bread and Breakfast cookbook. Next thing that I got, Practical Cooking Chicken. And this one does not have a designated author, but it was published by Parragon. I like the idea of cookbooks that center around one key ingredient or kind of food. It reminds me of Iron Chef, where there's a secret ingredient that is the theme to the battle, and they have to cook recipes that make that particular ingredient the star. And I think that the different and various things that you can do with chicken is remarkable. Mediterranean chicken, whiskey roast chicken. Marmalade chicken's also something that can be interesting, to say the very least. Next thing that I got, something I gotta have, the Ultimate Italian Cookbook. Just the fact that it is priding itself on the ultimate Italian is bound to catch my attention. And this was written by Carla Capalbo. And this is really, I think this is really doing what it can to be a home run hitter as far as Italian cookbooks are concerned. Next one that I got was only 85 cents, since it was the cookbook sale, and that is the Frugal Gourmet Whole Family Cookbook by Jeff Smith. Jeff Smith is somebody that I first came across when I would watch cooking shows, which would always be on TV because my mom would be watching them. Jeff Smith was on all the time. He would frequently have Elmo on his show, so he would engage in the younger audience that way. Unfortunately, because of personal issues of his own, it tainted his reputation and caused him to disappear. He eventually died in, I want to say it was 2004, because it was the same year as Julia Child. He died a few months earlier. But this contains all of the recipes that he cooked on his Frugal Gourmet television show. The fact that it was written in 1992 leads me to believe that it was all of the recipes he cooked up to that point. But we'll have to see. This is definitely something I'll be inclined to check out. Next one is Beard on Pasta. And by Beard, they're talking about James Beard, and he is arguably the culinary authority as far as renowned cooking goes, and the foodie awards for best chefs and best cookbooks and best writing about food each year, and best restaurants in each area, they fall under the James Beard Awards. And I'll be really interested to see how he approaches the topic of pasta. Next one I wanted to talk about is going back on something that I referred to earlier. That is Iron Chef, the official book. And this is a guide to the very best of the Japanese version of Iron Chef. These are each of the Iron Chefs. This is Masaharu Morimoto, who was on the American version as well. There's Hiroyaki Sakai, Chen Kenichi. This is Nakamura. He's the Italian Iron Chef, and I believe he came later on. And this is the chairman. The American chairman, Deskokis, he would surrender the pepper in favor of an apple. But I'm really interested to check this out and see what I get out of Iron Chef and what I learn about it. Next book really caught my attention because I really like regional cookbooks, because not only do I learn more about a country's cuisine, but I feel that that is very reflective in learning more about the country itself. And this one is Paul Kovi's Transylvanian Cuisine, History, Gastronomy, Legend, and Lore from Middle Europe's Most Remarkable Region. I'm just curious to see what kind of cuisine Transylvanian cuisine is, because when I think of Transylvania, I think of vampires and Dracula. And I feel that there is much more to this region than vampires and Dracula. Next one caught my attention for obvious reasons, and that's the New American Cheese. And it has to do with America's great cheesemakers, the different makes of cheese within the region, within the country, and recipes as well. And by American cheese, they mean authentic and properly made cheese, made on the farm and not in the factory, and with the form of processing. Next one that I got is Spaghetti, America's Favorite Pasta by Joie Warner. And this was $1.50, so a few new spaghetti recipes, I'm for it. The next one really caught my attention because in a way it has to do with written work and the recipes that one can get out of it. And this is probably the most important piece of written work of all time. I shouldn't even be saying probably. It is definitely the most important written work of all time. And that is Eating the Bible, Over 50 Delicious Recipes to Feed Your Body and Nourish Your Soul by Rena Rossner. And I'm just curious to see how this is approached, and it will give me a greater understanding of the time and conditions of those that were living during the biblical periods. Next one is La Cucina di Lidia, Distinctive Regional Cuisine from the North of Italy by Lidia Bastianich and J. Jacobs. And this is from 1990, so this is Lidia way back when. Lidia has picked up acclaim during the last, I would say, 15 to 20 years. She's become the major driving force of public broadcasting cooking shows. And I'll be interested to see the recipes that I can grab out of here. Martha Stewart's been doing me well, so Lidia Bastianich should definitely do me well, especially since I went to see her at a live cooking event. Next one, the themed ingredient trend continues. I got 1001 muffins, biscuits, donuts, pancakes, waffles, popovers, fritters, scones, and other quick breads. And Greg R. Gillespie is the one that put this together. And I'll be interested to see what kind of quick bread recipes I can put together from here and whether or not they meet the mark. For me, though, if it's a pancake, waffle, French toast, any of those kind of breakfast treats, if you put cannoli cream or ice cream on top of it, I'm happy. Next book that I got is The Classic Chinese Cookbook by Mai Liang. And this is interesting because Liang is from China, but when this book was released, she was living in Madison, New Jersey. So she's a New Jersey native, and I'll be interested to see her approach to Chinese cuisine because she went to college in China and has a great connection with her birth roots. Here's a picture of her on the back, too. Next one that I got is Splendid Soups. Recipes and Master Techniques for Making the World's Best Soups by James Peterson. And he also wrote a book about sauces, and that was a James Beard Award winner. I'm just really interested to learn more about soup, the different kinds of soup, and methods in making them, because I'm not necessarily experienced in putting together soup, but it's something I really want to learn how to cook, because there's so much you can do with it. My favorites are vegetable pureed, like the mushroom soup that's pureed, and soups of that nature. And the last cookbook that I got was A Taste of Astronomy, which has to do with 240 heavenly recipes and menus for each astrological sign by Lucy Ash. Astronomy is not something that I take for gospel, because I follow more of a Christian-based belief system. But I'm always interested to see what the stars project for people born during different periods of the year, and whether or not their projections are accurate. For me, myself, being a Pisces, I'll be really interested to see what kind of recipes Ash has selected to supplement my astrological sign. Some of the things that have been said about my sign are pretty accurate. There's other things not so much, but it's a game to me. I think that astrology is meant to work for you. And you can pick and choose what you choose to abide by. Alrighty. Now we move on to the non-cookbooks. I acquired a total of 10 non-cookbooks, and the first 3 all are from the Goosebumps series, because Ari has had a lot of nice things to say about Goosebumps. His video talking about the different books in the series have really... it caught a lot of attention, and it was in the top 5 most watched videos on our channel. His Eleanor Rigby video, though, has become his best video and the best individual video. Only Araby and Daddy have more views. But the Goosebumps books that I got are Be Careful What You Wish For, The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, and One Day at Horrorland, which I Horrorland came before Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, but I'll have to see how I want to go about reading these. But they're all written by R.L. Stine, who, in a way, has really made an impact on horror fiction directed to younger audiences, which is exactly what Stephen King does for adult audiences, is revolutionize horror fiction. Next book that I got is Scavengers by David J. Skal, which the horrific elements to this one having to do with I'll read the header out for you, and that is, At the church of the extended mind, the ultimate sensation is inhabiting the mind of others. Quite interesting, this idea of mind control. And Star Child is the next one I got, by Fred Mustard Stewart. And this one has to do with evil that is ready to make its way into a modest community. Header on here, which is on the front. He came in a dream to warn of the nightmare. Scavengers, technically the header is, a mind means nothing if it cannot be shared, but the text that I read was on the back. Next one that I got is The Rag and Bone Shop by Robert Cormier. This is a book that I did read. I borrowed it from my high school, but I'm looking to reread this at some point because I want a clearer idea of my thoughts so that I can write a review about it. Because it's been 9 years since it's been 8 or 9 years. It's been 8 years since I read this book, and I think that a reread may be in store. Next one that I got is The Third Man and the Fallen Idol by Graham Greene. Greene is somebody that I want to get into ever since I picked up The Quiet American, and I heard the film adaptation of The Third Man was a cinematic masterpiece that's often discussed. And I heard it being discussed in an episode of Ebert Presents at the Movies, which was a great shame that show was canceled due to lack of funding. But I definitely am eager to get to this. And I got 1945 by Robert Conroy, which has to it answers the question of what if Japan hadn't surrendered in World War II. So it is an alternative history. And I think that this can be quite intriguing. The only alternative history books that I have read is 11/22/63, and the part about the aftermath really grabbed my attention, and I'll be interested to see how Conroy approaches this. Next one that I got is The American Presidents, Biographies of Our Chief Executives, 10th edition by David C. Whitney. And this only goes up to George W. Bush, but this one was completely revised and updated by Robert Vaughn Whitney, probably his wife. Yeah, well, it was his wife because he has since passed away. That's very much like William D. Gregorio, who passed away relatively early, and his books are constantly updated when we get new presidents and there's new information. But I'll be curious to see what I learn more about the presidents. The last book that I got is John Marshall, Definer of a Nation by Jean Edward Smith, or Jean Edward Smith. I'm not sure what the pronunciation is, but Smith, from what I have heard, is a impressive and remarkable biographer. One of the most recent books that I got from him is Eisenhower in War and Peace, which was fortunate that the book was right in reach, but Marshall is probably historically speaking, the key justice of the Supreme Court. He had the longest tenure, and was quite a Supreme Court the Supreme Court has a great impact on the direction of the country, and I think that you can tell a lot about a president or presidents as a plural by the justices that they appoint to the Supreme Court. I'm not even going to lift them all up because I got 26 books, which is quite something. I've got a lot to read, and as far as the cookbooks are concerned, I have a lot of recipes that I can cook because I'm taking on more cooking responsibilities at my house. Thank you for tuning into this video. I hope you check out some more videos from our channel. And for now, and as always, I encourage you to keep reading.